Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Benjamin Rasmus. I'm a fourth-year finance student here at Hanken School of Economics and the Forum Director. I'm honored to be the host to get things started. I would very much like to welcome you all to the Veritas Forum at Hanken School of Economics. Veritas is Latin for truth. So we're here tonight for real discussion and presentation to connect the truth to some of the hardest questions in business schools. When do we have enough? Does money make us happy? What will eventually lead to happiness? These are the kind of questions we're asking us tonight. Today's presentation takes about 45 minutes, followed by a 30-minute session for questions and answers. The moderators of the Q&A session will be the siblings Henrik and Hanna Järveläinen. Hanna is studying at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Helsinki, and Henrik is studying at Aalto University School of Electrical Engineering. After the Q&A session, there will be refreshments in the lobby. I would like to inform you that this event is also recorded and is uploaded on veritasforum.fi. The Veritas Forum at Hanken School of Economics is sponsored by the Student Union of Hanken School of Economics and also Helsingfors Studentmission. On the behalf of these two student organizations, I hope we'll have a wonderful event today. And now, let me introduce today's presenter. He has a long and great career in various high banking positions in London, Washington and Paris, and as a director of Finland's Central Bank and Ministry of Finance. He has published several books, of which the latest, Swindling Billions, has become an international bestseller. His book Money and Happiness can be bought after the event at a special price for €10 for a 300-page hardcover copy. And if you ask nicely, I think the author will be more than happy to assign his book with his signature and best wishes. Today's presenter graduated as Doctor in Economics from Hanken School of Economics in 1979, and we're glad to have him back. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kari Nars.
Ja, det är bra. Tackar. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I must say that although I have given hundreds of speeches during my lifetime, it's rather seldom that I have had the opportunity to speak to an audience which is so intelligent looking as we have here today. The topic that we have is of course about money and happiness, and money is a quite suitable topic here in the School of Economics, because I believe that many of you are hoping to have, first of all, of course, an interesting professional life, but also I'm sure that the great majority of you expect to earn a good deal of money during your forthcoming professional life, and I'll tell you why money isn't that important as many people believe. There are many people who have asked by a quite experienced banker, having worked in the World Bank in Washington and as a member of the board of the European EBRD Bank, East European Bank in London for many years, and then I was chairman in Paris of the Council of Europe Development Bank for about 10 years. And then working in the Bank of Finland and in the Ministry of Finance as director, as you were told already. And many people have asked that how can a cold-hearted banker write about money And the reason for that is really that as an economist and a banker, I've been astonished why the enormous increase in per capita income in Finland and in many other of your countries. In Finland, the real incomes, if you deduct for the inflation rate here, the real income per capita in Finland rose about 15 times during the last century. But if somebody believes that people would be 15 times happier today, you of course have to be pretty naive. Secondly, what I thought was is quite scary, that every day we see on TV and read in newspaper about all kinds of negative phenomena, the burnout, depression, people don't feel well, and families are broken up, and a lot of divorces and unemployment and crime and suicide. All of this we read about in our countries, which are Western countries and which are the richest countries in history. How is it possible that there are so many negative phenomena as we can witness every day? And thirdly, my basic question in writing this book, which has become a bestseller and is now selling abroad also, is that is it so that we are living on an iceberg of reasonable happiness, and that iceberg is slowly melting under us in the heat of globalism and the very strong competition that we can see everywhere. The reason that I wrote the book is that I started to think about this suddenly when I got the great news that I had cancer, and aggressive cancer, which fortunately could be taken care of through a large operation. And I probably had the same feeling that the English philosopher, very famous philosopher Samuel Johnson once had, that there's nothing that concentrates man's mind as much as knowing that you may be hanged tomorrow. So that is the reason for writing the book. And what struck me also is that when I was looking last night on Google's and checking how many strikes there are for money, the right answer is 2,770 million strikes for the search word money, but only 449 million for happiness. And I think that's a weird result, because do people really believe that money is 6 times more important than happiness? In my opinion, the only really right goal for people in life is to lead a happy life and make the people around you, your family, your children happy, and to help people. I think that is the only real outstanding objective for a human life, whereas everything else, like a good education, which you are probably getting here still in Hanken, or a good work, or money, or so, all of that, these are only means and means through which you are trying to achieve a happy life. My friend Jörn Donner, who wrote this tremendous book, which I will not read, is 1,100 pages, and it's called the Mastodont, I think it is, Mastodont, and we were discussing about happiness with Jörn Donner, and he said that I asked him, what, in your opinion, is the purpose of human life? And he said, it's basically to live. And I think that's, I told him also, that is completely stupid, because if a human being says that the only goal in life is to live, in my opinion, that person degrades him to the same low level as a grazing cow in a field. And I think that these are to achieve happiness, as I said, for you and for your surroundings, is the real, only real objective I can think of. Now, I have this picture here which says that, look, Oscar, money is surely life's scorecard or life's report card, betyg. And how many of you are of the same opinion as Oscar's friend? Is money really the report card of people? Who agrees with that statement? I told you in the beginning that you are very intelligent, because I strongly disagree with that statement, and there are so many other things which are much more important. Now, in many countries, and particularly in the American society, I lived 4 years in the United States and have visited many times after that. In America, of course, that is the most money-focused country in the world. And the general question people ask, first of all, how much do you make? How much do you earn? And then secondly, if somebody tells them that no, they are not particularly rich, or so, that if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? That's, in my opinion, a rather disastrous view among people. But we can't get around that money is king today. And we all know that money is king. 2/3 of the Finnish people are lottoing every week, and in the hope of winning a few million euros, and then they think that life will be wonderful. I'll tell you how wonderful it will be. Now, happiness, there are 5 topics in literature that are the most important ones, and many of you know also the same in opera, art, etc. And that is, the 5 topics are, in my opinion, it's power, and it's love, and it's happiness, and it's money, and it's death. And these 5 topics you find in all the works of Shakespeare, like in Romeo and Juliet, and in Hamlet, and The Merchant in Venice, or in other classic writers like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, or in Finland, Runeberg or Alexis. They all speak about these 5 topics: power, love, happiness, money, and death. Now, if we look at what the happiness level is in different countries, and here is the earnings per capita. It goes from 0 to 20,000 dollars a year. And this is the happiness level. The text is too small, but here are the former socialist countries which had the lousiest political systems in the world. People can't trust each other, and the level of standard of living is very low. So these have the countries, Russia and Ukraine and Uzbekistan, where people are least happy. And the Western industrial countries have a quite high level of happiness. But what is interesting is that up here in some of the developing countries, particularly in South America, where the level of income is only about 1/5 of what we have here in Finland or in other Western countries. But nevertheless, their level of happiness is almost as high as in the rich Western countries. And that is due to the fact that still in these countries they are so-called friendship societies, where the family is very important, where religion plays a very high role. Religious people in general tend to be a little happier than non-religious people because they have the support of the group and the church. And people are in these Latin American countries are mixing up, speak a lot with for their friends, etc. And that's why they can be almost as happy as our countries at 1/5 of the money. In the famous communist love song in the International, they used to say that these two guys are sitting in a small house and they are saying "Tavarich," and how did they dare to sing that the International is bringing happiness? And it didn't bring happiness. The Soviet Union disappeared overnight. And as I already said, that the social countries have the pretty much the lowest level of happiness of all countries. Now let's look actually what happens. It's a paradox, and the happiness in the US, the curve is continuing. This is an old, but this is a particularly remarkable development from 80 till 2000. And you see that in the richest country in the world, trend-wise, the happiness has been gradually decreasing, and that decrease is continuing all the time. So you could actually draw a straight line which just continues as a trend line, and then you would. So that already shows that the role of money for happiness is greatly exaggerated. Why is it that the role of money is so exaggerated? Many of you have read books in economics, and I read that in the University of Helsinki and graduated from that before I moved over to Hanken. And it's interesting that show me one book in macroeconomics which has mentions the word happiness, and come and show it to me, because I haven't seen the word happiness mentioned in any really major economic books. And that is because they speak about utility, that if you get more money, you get more utility in terms of goods that you can buy or housing or so, but they never really, good top economists, Nobel Prize winners or so, they never mention the word happiness, which I thought is ludicrous and stupid. and because what is life about, as I said, anything else than trying to get a little more happiness. Now, what is happiness actually? How can happiness be measured? Happiness, of course, is a sudden sensation. You have a small child with a baby with big eyes in your hands, and or you listen to Sibelius' Fifth Symphony, or you wake up on the seaside and the sun is shining and you feel great, you are happy. But that's a momentous feeling. What is measured really in terms of happiness is really not the momentous happiness. It's about life satisfaction. How satisfied you are with your family, with your friends, with your job, with your hobbies, with your health, and all of this is amalgamated into a kind of life satisfaction, and that is what is measured. And that's where Finland typically has been in the large measurements of happiness, and the other Nordic countries also. Finland has been perhaps on top, along with Sweden, in terms of happiness scales. Denmark has perhaps sometimes been a little happier, because 67% of the Danes say that they are very happy, but I think unfortunately that those who have made these interviews with the Danes had really hit on people who mostly have had a few Tuborg or Carlsberg beers or so, because it's really impossible in any nation that 68% of the population would be very happy. That's scientifically absolutely impossible. Now, the main question that I addressed is that does money bring happiness? And many people really say, when you ask that, yes, it brings at least a lot of more happiness, although a lot of people in Finland are not interested in confessing how important they think that money is, and people in Finland are well, a little uncertain what brings happiness. But what brings happiness is, I'll tell you, the 5 most important things that bring people happiness is a good family life, good friends, and a good job that you feel is meaningful, and good hobbies, whatever it may be. Collecting stamps, or playing golf, or jogging, or reading books, or seeing films, whatever. But good hobbies, and then thirdly, the 5th element is a good health. And these are the real factors, the 5 factors that can bring more happiness. But one word of warning. It's really true also that happiness is partly really hereditary. And already Darwin observed that horses that are happy and don't kick people around or bite them or so, they are nice horses. And nice horses really tend to get nice foals, nice children also, whereas angry horses who kick people around and bite their ears off or so tend to have foals that also are angry foals, and that is true for people. People aren't much different from horses, and people who have reasonably happy parents have a good chance of being reasonably happy themselves. Most people, and you are all young people, I'm an old man, but most people when I was young, and I think many of you think the same, that you are all self-made, brilliant people. That's at least what boys think, and I'm sure girls also, that they are kind of self-made, that they are doing well at school, etc. That's not true, because also that is at least 50%, 60% is due to your parents, and you shouldn't regard yourself as self-made men or women too much, because that is a fact. As regards the happiness in relation to income, and this is a rather perplex picture, because what we can see here is the income level from $0 to $70,000, and then happiness rises as the curve goes upwards. And what you see in this picture is quite clear, that at a low income level, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year, slightly more money brings and can buys a lot of happiness, because low-income people can get more better food or better housing, better medicines, whatever. But what happens then after you come to the kind of average level of income in Finland, about 35,000 euro a year, you see that the happiness curve is turning flatter and flatter. It never goes down with increasing income, but what you see is that for somebody on the level of $70,000 a year, the increase in the incomes are for, say, for $20,000 or $10,000 more a year, buys very little extra happiness. And I can tell you honestly that I have met during my life abroad, I still partly live abroad in France, in Provence, and I have met in New York, in London, in Paris, in the south of France, in Provence, quite a few millionaires and a few billionaires also. And most of these have not looked happy at all, really, because they feel that people are quite jealous of them, and rich people, really rich people, are thinking mostly of money, much more than other people do, and they feel the jealousness of other people, and they are afraid that people are trying to rob or steal their money, etc., etc. I asked a friend who was technical director of the Nautor shipyard in Jakobstad, which is my hometown, and they are producing the world-famous Swan sailing boats, which cost about 10 to 20 million euro a piece. And I asked him that during his many years in the service of the Swan shipyard that of all the millionaires who are flying in their private planes and this looks good, one of them even said that it's so good that I can pay it now, I pay everything now, and started to write a checkbook, but my friends in Nautor were so honest that they said, well, we'll be happy to take your money, but you have paid it already once. The boat cost 10 million and he had forgotten that he had paid it. And of the 200 millionaires that he had met, my friend, I asked that, was any of them really kind of nice and looked very happy? And he thought a little while and said, yes. One of them was a real nice guy, and he really looked happy. It was an Australian. But the rest, they were not happy and they were not nice. Why does, let's still look at what the share of people who in Finland say that they are very happy, and when their incomes have been increasing to 60,000-70,000 euro a year, a little bit more people say that they are happy. But as you can see here also, that when incomes rise from, say, 20,000-30,000 a year to 70,000 a year, you see that the curve is not going upwards very sharply. And I think that is also telling. Some people, of course, are certain that money brings more happiness. And even I read about a famous film star. She wasn't a very good film star, but she was famous because she had been 8 times happily married. And it was Kim Novak. And Kim Novak said that she is rather crying in the backseat of a Rolls-Royce than in the backseat of a Volkswagen. And I think that is a particularly stupid statement, because I don't think that anybody who cries in the backseat of a Rolls-Royce is any happier at all than somebody who is unhappy on the backseat of a Volkswagen. The same thing is my experience. The millionaires I have met in these countries haven't really looked very happy at all. And there was an interview poll of the 100 richest people in the United States, and there are a lot of really very rich people there. And then they took, for comparison, a group out of haphazard from the telephone directory in New York where these millionaires were. And it turned out that none of these millionaires reported that they were particularly happier than the normal people who had been taking haphazardly from the telephone book in New York. Even one of the millionaires who had, he was a billionaire, said that he has had only one happy day in his life. One day he's been happy. Now, let's look at how the lotto millionaires are doing. These are the neighbors. That's the lotto millionaire who walks in the backyard of his house, and these are his neighbors. And the neighbors are saying there is the satanic lotto winner shit who is walking, who is shuffling around here on our backyard. And that is the feeling that many lotto winners also have, that their friends, their neighbors get happy. I read a book that has our Veikkaus company, which organizes the lotto and all of these other things, betting things. And there they came to the conclusion, same conclusion in the United States and in England, when I went through the literature, that lotto winners in general, after the first euphoria and happiness, in the long run are not much happier than normal people. Actually, many of them, of the big lotto winners, who have won, say, a few million euros, which already is big money, or even more. It has turned out that quite a few of them have become really great alcoholics, and their wives have left them, and they have had to move house because so many people and beggars turned up trying to get money from them, and their friends disappeared when they didn't get any extra money from these lotto winners, etc. So it's not good for people, for poor people to become rich. When we look at what the situation is in Finland and happiness, how happy are people, we had this in early 1990s, tremendously bad depression, but after that happiness has basically come back, but not quite to the same level where it used to be before. So that to be a Finn is like earning on the lotto. I think that fewer and fewer people think so anymore in today's world. Now, I said that there is a chronic, in the Western societies, there is a chronic disease of unhappiness, and a lot of people feel that they must be supported by the government and other people because they say that they are so unhappy. These people are normally comparing themselves upwards, and you should never compare yourself upwards. I tell you a story about the Olympics in Barcelona about 15, 20 years ago, and about 200 medal holders were interviewed, gold medalists and silver medalists and bronze medalists, and it turned out that obviously the happiest ones were the gold medalists. But it turned out, and that was strange, that the bronze medalists were considerably happier than the silver medalists, because the bronze medalists compared themselves downwards and felt great because they were able to get up on the podium, contrary to the many athletes who did not get a medal at all. Whereas the silver medalists made the mistake of comparing themselves with the gold medalists and were crying blood because 1 centimeter or 1/100th of a second had robbed them from the gold. And I think it is very important in life that don't compare yourself with Wundts or other millionaires, even although I wish you good luck in earning great money. But it's better to compare, think that how good your life after all is, and to compare yourself with other people who perhaps are in a slightly other not so good situation. Another thing, and that also has to do with comparing yourself upwards, and that is this guy who is standing here in front of the director of administration says that I was very happy having gotten this 5% salary increase, but when I heard that my colleague Antti had received the same, all my happiness was thrown out through the window, because people want to be a little different, want to be a success, but if they're people on the same level get the same or so, it really doesn't warm the heart of those people very much. It's a little. Some of you who have read psychology have seen Wundts curve. Wundt was a psychologist who was the founder of modern psychology. And what Wundt really, I think it is quite interesting. Here is the level of happiness, and here is the intensity of the what's going on. And you see that, for instance, take a children's birthday, and when the children arrive, their happiness is increasing very, very rapidly. There's a lot of laughing, etc., etc. But suddenly, when they come to the peak of happiness, it starts to go down from that point, and children become tired, they start to cry, there's a little of fighting, etc. And it's the same with the drinks, alcohol, that the first 2 or 3 drinks, people become, I'm a great guy, and feel very happy or so. But when the happiness is at its highest level, and people have, somebody has had his 5th or 6th stiff drink, his happiness starts to go down, he starts to feel, sick a little, and at least the surroundings start to feel sick about this guy who is shuffling around, etc. And I think Wundts curve very much reflects what's going on in our strange society. Now, I come towards the end here, but what I would like to say is that married people are in general happier than unmarried people. That's definitely a fact. And here we can see how the marriage works in the family cycle. It starts up there. People get married and everybody is very happy. But then you get used to each other and see that, well, this guy wasn't that fantastic after all, and well, why is he doing that? Very strange. And then small children starts to keep you up at night, and people are working very hard for their career also, and the level of happiness really goes down all the time. And then when the children have grown to be about 12 to 18 years of age and start to leave and come in only occasionally with very nice grandchildren also, very nice, then the people in the marriage starts to become happier and happier. And after that, until the level of happiness within the marriage increases all the time until one of the partners dies. And I have not heard anybody disputing this. It is a strange, and it is also true of people's, if you look just at individuals, that the happiness curve is going down until the age of 35 or 40, and then starts third life, and people become happier when they have established themselves, when the ambitions are not so overwhelmingly strong, etc., etc. So Adam Smith, who was the father of economics, he said that one thing that is very dangerous from the point of view of happiness is unrealistic ambitions. He said that unrealistic ambitions are the gift of an angry heaven. And really people who are over-ambitious compared with their possibilities are quite frequently very unhappy. So what I'll do is that, well, we know also about marriage that behind every successful man, you should remember it, behind every successful man stands a surprised wife, and even a more surprised, how do you say, mother-in-law. That is the story, because, well, the girls, you will see in the future. So that I would like to finish here, because my time allotment is already, and by just saying that the greatest losers in life are those that are most consumption oriented, because really to buy stuff that you don't have, everybody knows that we all, when we think of a new car or a new flat TV or so, when we plan it, we think it will be great and we will be very happy. After 2 days, well, that old TV wasn't after all so bad, and the car, it isn't running really much better than my old car. So that the happiness that really buying all kinds of stuff is very momentary. Now, one thing which is also very bad for society in our, for happiness in our societies is the neo-egoism, which we see both in working places. Everybody is looking after only his own interests. You see it in traffic, on the terrible traffic in the streets of Helsinki. And people normally in our societies have a lot of acquaintances and colleagues that they get through Hanken or through their job or through their hobbies. But most of these human relationships are much more shallow than they used to be in the kind of more in the old societies where people were meeting much more frequently. And it's a type of Machiavellism in human intercourse, that when this Machiavellism comes in the warmness in human relationships is disappearing out the window. Finally, I'd like to say that I'm quite pessimistic regarding the level of happiness in our Western societies, because what we see now is a very strong clash between the tremendous demands that for competitiveness that the globalization is bringing to us, in order to really for companies to do well in this heat of the quarterly economy. It means that a lot of people will be get fired, and the requirements for savings and for hard work is becoming increasingly strong. There will be a collision between the Nordic welfare society and this very, very hard society that we see among us. And I think that will lead to less happiness in the future. But I conclude by really this is a kind of crystal ball in front of this gypsy lady, and she says, which of course is true, that things will go well, but then sometimes they will not go well. Very important conclusion by the girl. So I conclude by saying that it will not be easy for you to find happiness in the future. Women are smarter in that regard because they have more social relations and they have more proportions in their expectations in life. They are doing clearly better, and there came recently out a very interesting book which I even sent to my friend and former very close superior, who now happens to be the president of Finland, Mr. Niinistö. That was when he was Minister of Finance. And the name of that book, which is written by an American very good writer lady, is The Age of Men. And it is quite pessimistic, the book, as regards the role of men in the longer run. So happiness will not be easy to achieve. It is a little bit, and that's my final sentence, it's a little bit like the famous French philosopher Voltaire said, that people are often falling on their own feet when they are looking for more happiness. And they are looking for happiness like a drunkard who is looking for his house. He doesn't find it, but he knows that it is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kari, for a thought-provoking presentation. I think you raised questions in all of us, and I hope every one of you in the audience will take hold of this opportunity to present these questions, if you have any, to Kari. We will start with our questions and answers session, and we will have about half an hour time. And you can ask either in English, Swedish, or Finnish. Just raise your hand, and we will have one mic here on this.
Or French or German is also.
Yeah, and Kari will translate it then as well. We will have one mic here in this stairway, so raise your hand, and at your turn you can ask your questions clearly and with respect to everybody else.
Or pieces of good advice.
Yeah, you will have time to think of your questions. We will start with one question from Hanna.
You said that you talked about unhappiness of millionaires and how many millionaires and billionaires are unhappy, and you mentioned the thing that people are very jealous of each other. And do you think that the unhappiness of millionaires is because of they're afraid of losing their standards of living, or somehow that they would lose the ground under their feet, or something like that, that they have achieved such a high standard and high position that they're afraid of losing everything it's the biggest cause of unhappiness?
Yes, I think that's one of the most important things, that they are really suspecting that other people are only out after their money and trying to cheat them, and that's why many of them feel quite insecure and are watchful, that why is this guy why is he trying to be a friend to me, etc. So it's a kind of dichotomy. And it's not easy to be a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire, but well, millionaire, but not a big millionaire.
Could there be a ground if the objective or the reason for unhappiness is the fear of losing everything and fear of losing the ground? Could there be some ground or something in life that would not sink under the feet, that would bring happiness in the end?
Well, I would say that one thing which we see that some billionaires in the United States have recognized that it's like it says in the Bible, I believe also, that it is better to give than to take. And for instance, this what's his name, the stock exchange guy, starts on B, Buffett, yeah. Buffett has donated quite a few billions really for work in the developing countries, and also these some other IT billionaires have donated practically all their money to, and I think that is extremely important and brings a great deal of happiness to the giver. There is a lady school teacher whose name is Naima Jacobson, and she says that he is not richest who has saved the most, he is richest who has given the most. And I think there's a great wisdom in those things, and that is of course what also in religion has been pointed out. And as I said, religious people in general, I'm not a particularly religious person, are in general a little happier than other people.
Okay, now we would have you all have opportunity to ask questions, so just raise your hands and Matti will bring the mic.
Does it generally matter if you've earned the money yourself or if you're, say, from a rich family?
You ask if I earn my money?
No, I'm asking like with regard to being happy or unhappy.
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, I don't think it's very healthy for people to get big heritages, because in many cases you really see like kind of lotto winners or so, that their whole life is really creates easily a lot of difficulties. So I think it is much more important that you have done it with your own hands and instead of getting it like a gift from heaven.
Okay, did we have another question there?
Yes, you said that the Danes say that 67% are happy. Why do you think that this is such a high number among Danes? Like, what's the highest amount that we can?
Well, the Danes, basically other polls or gallops show that basically the average happiness in Denmark is about the same as in Finland. I was just referring to a different thing that quite a lot of people said that they are extremely happy, but I think that Gallup was flawed and not correct. The Danes are really generally quite happy people. They smile a lot also, but there are a lot of problems also in the Danish society, like in our society.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
You said also that you should compare yourself to people that are like lower than you or somehow didn't achieve as much as you. Don't you think that somehow also this will lead to less innovative people and you will start to not strive for as high goals as before? And then in society as a whole?
No, well, I hope not, because innovative people, of course, are very important in all of our societies. But what I'm trying to say here is that one really should have a sound assessment of one's own situation and be grateful for what one has received, grateful that you are in a position to study in such a good institution like Hanken, etc., and that I have a promising future behind me, and you have a promising future in front of you. So what I don't mean is that you really, when you compare yourself downward, that you should give in and not really try your best what you can do. It's not a defeatistic thing, but you shouldn't compare yourself with, film stars or really billionaires or something like that. I don't think that's very healthy.
We have one up there.
Really good questions and good answers as well. I have actually two follow-up questions for these two previous ones. First, with the Danish ones, you also said that there is a scientific proof that it can't be possible to have approximately 60 to 70% happy people. What is the scientific proof? Why can't it be 100% happy?
Is there a scientific proof why there can't be 100%? You said that scientifically it's impossible that 60 to 70% of people could be happy, but why couldn't, as an example, idealistically 100% of people be happy in a state? Was that what you meant?
I don't think that is really possible. Some of you may have read the works of Marx and Engels, and of course the communist philosophy was that one could create a society where everybody is equal and where everybody receives what they need, and there is a general constant happiness in these societies, and even the lions and the lambs are grazing in the same green fields. Obviously one has to be a bit naive to think that lions and lambs would be grazing next to each other, because that will never be the case. The lions will eat up the lambs within a few minutes. So that I don't think it is unfortunately possible to have a kind of all over happy societies, because a lot of people, when they see our neighbor, has a big car or a nice house or so, and that's really, damn it, I'm very unhappy about that, and I have to do better. And there will always be competition and jealousy among people. That's part of the human race.
On this, you kind of led my way, or led the way to my second question, and to the other question that the lady asked before me, that comparing oneself to other people, do you think that is valid, or people should actually even compare themselves with each other, or should it be more like your own satisfaction only, instead of comparing your satisfaction with the other people's satisfaction? I mean, in that sense, you could probably have more happy people if you didn't always compare yourself with each other. Surely enough, there will be inequality, which stems from inequality in welfare or whatever, but this is ultimately also about money. And if this is the case, the money doesn't create happiness, then should we just forget about comparing each other and forget about comparing wealth or any other things and concentrate on personal happiness?
Well, what you're saying, if I understand the question right, it is true that the more equal or reasonable, within reasonable limits, that countries where the income distribution is not very sharp, that you have, say, a few hundreds of really great billionaires, like in some developing countries, and then the rest of people are more or less poor. That of course is the worst situation from the point of view of happiness. In the Nordic countries, we have reasonably fair income distribution, and that is regarded as one reason why the Nordic countries are generally on the top end of the top tier of the happiness scale, because people don't, if they see that most of the population is in a bad situation and they see a few Rolls-Royce millionaires rattling around also, that's not good for people's happiness.
Okay, thank you. There was also in the middle one question. Did you still have a question in the middle? Okay.
No.
If not, well, thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to speak to you. I hope that you remember some of these things. And
we have one.
Yes.
Yeah, I would actually have a question. You said a few times that religious people are in general happier. Are there any differences between religions? I mean, Christians, Muslims, Hinduism, and so forth.
It's very difficult to say, but I suppose that that also in other religions, that the closeness of people within the community is the religious community helps people to gives people satisfaction and some happiness. On the other hand, of course, when you compare economic success All of you may know that in the Protestant countries, the level of income is somewhat higher than in Catholic countries. I don't know how many Catholics there are here among, but because already Luther and the kind of Protestant religion emphasizes the hard work and that if you work hard on this earth, then you will be rewarded in heaven. And that has led to a better economic performance in the Nordic Protestant countries, Lutheran countries, than in the southern Catholic countries who take it a little bit easier and where the religion is different, and you get through the what is it? Vad heter biktningen? Through Holy Communion and through the other things they have in the Catholic churches, you get kind of forgiveness for quite a few things that you've been doing. Yes, thank you very much for listening so patiently here. I'm very happy about that, and you made me happy coming, so many of you. If you are interested in the book, it has cost 33 euro, but now since you are students, it's 10 euro if somebody is interested, and then you get a nice dedication also if you like.
Thank you, Kari. On the behalf of Helsingfors Studentmission and Student Union of Hanken School of Economics, we would like to thank you with a few gifts. We know that you enjoy reading books, so here's a history of the Student Union of Hanken School of Economics.
Thank you. Thank you.
And since we know that you like hunting, we brought you Martini's newest hunting knife. It's full metal until the shaft, which makes it very durable and easy to wash.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I would also like to thank everybody from the Veritas planning team who's cooperated and been with organizing this event, and also the Student Union of Hanken School of Economics. And most of all, you, the audience. Thank you for coming. We still have a feedback survey in the lobby, so please fill it out so that we can create even better events in the future. And now we have refreshments in the lobby, so please enjoy, you burn it. Thank you.